Hey homeschool friends, welcome back to another review video. So like I said, I'm doing all of my Sonlight review videos. Today's video in particular is the History Bible Literature Level K. So we're talking world cultures today, or intro to world cultures. So this program that I used with my twins this past year, they were like 5.5 in the fall when we started. So I would say, honestly, balancing two different Sonlight levels was a little bit interesting this year. Now, I do stand behind all of the tips that I gave for that. I made a whole video about using multiple levels, but it was still challenging, and I'm going to be making some adjustments for next year. So stay tuned for all of that. But the goal for this video is to talk about how it worked this past year. And I'm not going to go through every single book because I have made so many videos about us using this program in my monthly update videos, as well as a kind of flip through resource video. I will link everything above. I put it all in a playlist, the HBL-K Science K playlist. So go check it out. If you're interested in even more of my thoughts of this program, go check those out. But otherwise, I'm just going to be chatting through the highlights, the things we liked the most, the books my twins loved, the books I loved. So stay tuned for all of my thoughts on Sonlight's HBL-K program. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back, all the things. And so, like I said, we're going to be chatting through this program, my review on Sonlight HBL-K. But before we do that, I do need to say a quick shout out to Sonlight for sending me some of the resources. Not all of them, because I have used bits of this program prior with my big kids, but I'm always appreciative for anything they send me. So to hop first into kind of age range, I like to start here with my reviews because I think it is helpful to understand if I agree with their age ranges, which I do. Again, this is geared for 5 to 7-year-olds or kindergarten through 2nd grade. So technically my kids are kindergarten, and they were 5.5 when we started, so they turned 6. So they're very much in the range. Now, do I feel like it fits this age range? Definitely. And I feel like as we go, I'll explain kind of how I feel like I would have used this program differently if, say, they were my firstborns versus my 3rd and 4th. We just had to adjust a little bit more. But is it on target? Yes, it's definitely on target. So let me start with Bible, because that's the first thing on the instructor's guide. We didn't use the Bible, but it wasn't because it looked bad. Actually, I wish I would have. I feel like this storybook Bible is highly regarded among so many homeschoolers. It's the Meyer's Bible Storybook, and it looks so good. And part of me just wants to kind of read this through with my twins this summer, but we did not use this only because I was trying to simplify and combine 2 cores at times when I could. And the Bible was one of those things. They just sat in with their older siblings reading scripture readings and things. So I don't really have any critiques one way or the other about the Bible program for HBL-K. So we're going to move into history then, because we did use history and we really enjoyed it. I would say our highlights though for history were the fun books. They were the fun kind of more historical fiction. Actually, no, take that back. They're not historical fiction. They're just more fun. And so, like, for instance, we read Game on Ancient Greece. It was just delightful. There's other ones in here like Ancient Egypt, Vikings, Ancient China. And it's just a delightful story about these kids that get sucked back into time, and they end up during the time of Ancient Greece. And you learn a lot about Greece at that time. So I feel like they learned the most from this book. But also they learned a bunch from these two, which are, these ones I'd say are more like, this one's historical. I'll just start with that. So this might have been my favorite book from the whole year, and mainly because of the questions it elicited from my kids, from my 6-year-olds. So this is called Out of Darkness, the Story of Louis Braille. Now, this is a biography of sorts. It's really diving into how Louis Braille became blind. And so it does talk about his accident, which is a little bit scary. And I did chat with my kids about that a bit, and just being careful with tools and all of that. But really, that's not the main point. The main point is his perseverance and his belief in what he was making. Like, he wanted to help. Like, after him attending this school for the blind in Paris, and then just feeling like he can make a better system to help him and his peers read and understand and not just be in the dark. It was really good, and it was really impactful for my kids, and just their ability to ask questions their ability to understand perseverance and hardships, but yet still relying on God and being content with our lives. It was just really good. And then this one was just really fun. And this started them listening to all the A to Z mystery books on audio. So this was The Missing Mummy. And so we got introduced to our main characters, to Ruth Rose, Josh, and Dink as they are solving this mystery of the missing mummy. It's so cute. It's so cute, and it kind of follows that Egyptian time frame. But now just to kind of talk about my thoughts around the history in general. So when you're talking intro to world cultures, you're actually talking about the breadth of history. It's like taking all of world history and covering it all within 1 year. And so the idea is it's very much surface level exposure. And I know that, and I went into knowing that. The struggle I think I had and my kids had were learning those pegs. Like they didn't have any kind of framework for this information that they were getting. Like we would read in, this was probably one of our main history type encyclopedias, was Living Long Ago, and it was really good. And it helped. I just feel like as we bounced along and throughout time, we were making such big jumps. And this would sometimes just talk about the clothes or the houses or the work. And it was interesting to me, but I feel like they got kind of lost in the weeds. And eventually they just didn't really want to sit for it. In all honesty, I feel like they would sit almost better for some of the resources for HBL-C with the big kids than they were sitting with this one, because I feel like it bounced a lot. Now, what's hard is I feel like if they were to have been my first kids to go through the program, like I didn't have any older kids, we could have just spent more time, and I feel like it might have been easier. I think part of my problem was the amount of resources I was juggling, and I might have actually been better off if this was the only resource I was juggling. You know what I mean? I feel like we could have made some of those connections. We could have deep dived. We could have pulled up documentaries and things like that, but really it just became that the things they understood the best in that book was because of what we had read with like HBL-C. Like when we learned about Vikings, then we got to Vikings in some of this stuff, and they're like, oh, we know all this stuff, Mom. And they could tell me tons of stuff, and then they were really engaged because they had kind of a peg of understanding, if you will. So was that a fault of the Sonlight program? No. That was more a fault of how I was using it. But it was also a learning year, and I can handle that. I can learn from the fact that I'm going to have to figure out how to adjust balancing two, and I do have an idea for next year that kind of might be a unique year. So stay tuned for that. But I think it's really good. I think it's a good resource. I just wish we could have used it better. And some other history resources we used the hands-on history kits. My kids love them. My 5 to 6 year olds really enjoyed them. Could they do them very well? No. Did I end up doing most of the projects myself? Yes. I totally ended up doing most of it myself. Or I'd have them come and be like, here, you hold this little popsicle stick against this one. We're going to glue it and make this catapult. And they loved the end result of the activities. And so it was totally worth it. And it's okay because age range specific, I didn't have the expectation to hand a kit to my 5-year-old and have them be able to read instructions and figure out how to do it. I knew I was going to have to be very involved. I just didn't quite realize I was going to have to practically do it all myself. And that's kind of how it felt. But that also could be that neither of my boys are super crafty, as opposed to my daughter, who's able to really take some of that stuff and run with it because she's just crafty minded. These two aren't necessarily. They weren't. And so favorite books from history, I think I already mentioned them. I'll just hold them up. Really, if I were to give you my favorite was Louis Braille. Their favorite was probably this one, if you're talking from the history section. And now though, to move on to literature, which really is all of our favorites. And honestly, if I were to know what I know now and be able to redo this year, I would have focused mostly on the literature and brought in some of the history, because the literature is where this program just shines. There's so many good read-alouds. I mean, we honestly pretty much love them all. I could hold up the whole stack, but again, I made other videos if you want to see specific details of them. But what are my kids' favorites? Favorites, though, I'll hold up their 2 extra special favorites. And that's these 2 books. You guys, these hold a special place in my heart just for how much all of my kids have loved these books. So the first being The Heartwood Hotel. So good, about a mouse named Mona. I actually bought the rest of the books, the other 3 books, and they read them, and it was the evening read aloud for them. And then The World According to Humphrey, about the little, I almost said hamster. Yeah, the little hamster that is in the classroom. They love these books. And then they listen to all the audiobooks. And after I showed them all the books to have them pick their favorites, they've been re-listening to Humphrey just because they forgot how much they loved this book. So these 2 extra special favorites of my twins. They also really loved these books. I would say if I were to pick books that they talked about a lot, it would be My Father's Dragon, and then this, The Adventures of the South Pole Pig, which is about a pig named Flora who wants to go on an adventure, and she ends up on a boat to the Antarctic. And it's a unique book. It's really fun. It kind of has a little bit of kind of Wilbur and Charlotte's Web vibes just because of the main character being a pig, but otherwise it's just a fun adventure story. Now, I also have some favorites. I have some favorites being The Boxcar Children. I love this book. This first one is so fun to read. And again, they've gone on to listen to a lot of the other ones. They listen to a lot of audiobooks, clearly. And then this book has a special place in my heart because of the first time around. And this is what helps Sonlight really shine for me, is that we repeat levels. We reread books. And this was a favorite from when my big kids went through the American history. They did some switching around of some of these early levels. Irregardless, we read Roxy and the Hooligans, and we have so many inside jokes from this book. And so when I got to read it to my twins, my big kids loved it. Everybody was just like, yay, we get to read Roxy and the Hooligan. Like, it was a big deal. It was a big deal to reread this book, and it was a big deal for the twins to understand some of those inside jokes now. Like, they get it. They understand what we're talking about. They understand the story. So for me, this is a favorite just because of the special family bonding that it has resulted in and the memories I have of it. So yeah, those are some favorite books. Oh my gosh, I love the books in HBL-K. So now, would I change anything? I mean, not really. Like I said, this has been an interesting year, and I feel like we would have done the program a little bit more to how it's written or to its entirety if we just wouldn't have been so busy with the other kids, as well as we just kind of had some things going on this spring, which I've mentioned in all these review videos. So that made it a little challenging. And the same for this program, as it made it a little bit challenging. We ended up just dropping this book and the Usborne Encyclopedia book and just went with more of the read-alouds. And that's okay, because honestly, there's no separation between my kids. The fact that we were doing multiple levels, they were around for a lot of the older kids' books. And so they just got a lot of exposure to a lot of things. And so do I regret doing their own program? No. Do I wish I could have done it better? Of course, but you know what? I just believe they were able to get exactly what they needed this year. When it comes to kindergarten anyway, I focus more on like the 3 R's than I do on history and science and things, but these still are important to me, and I really like the exposure and just some of the discussions that come of them, especially at this little 6-year-old level. I love hearing their thoughts, and that comes from some of these books and some of these topics. So I wouldn't trade that for anything. And so yeah, that is what I have for this video. I hope you found it helpful. I know we're kind of a little atypical in how we used it, but it was still really good. So let me know down below if you have any questions in particular about the World Cultures program. Like always, I have the affiliate link down below that gets you $10 off your first order. So that's pretty good. But otherwise, you guys, I'll see you in the next video, which I think that'll be the science videos. So Science K I will be reviewing, and Science C, and there's HBL-C out there that I just reviewed. So all the things. There's lots of good content that you can check out, as well as that playlist if you are interested in this program in general. So you guys, I hope you are well. I hope you are having a good day, and give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Okay, take care.